August 28, Prologue of Ochrid. The Venerable Moses the Black. Moses was an Ethiopian by birth. In the world, he was a thief and the leader of a band of thieves, and yet he became a penitent and a greater ascetic. Moses was once a slave who escaped and joined the thieves. Because of his great physical strength and daring, the robbers chose him as their leader. Then one day he was suddenly overcome with pangs of conscience and repented for his misdeeds. He left the thieves, entered a monastery, and gave himself over completely to obeying his spiritual father and the monastic rule. He benefited much from the teachings of Saint Macarius, Arsenius, and Isidore. Later, he withdrew to solitude in a cell, where he dedicated himself completely to physical labor, prayer, vigils, and contemplating God. Tormented by the demons of lust, Moses confessed to Isidore, his spiritual father, who gave him counsel to increase his fasting and even when eating to avoid satisfying his appetite. When this regimen did not help, he was counseled to keep all night vigil and to pray standing. Then he also began to practice of bringing water to the elderly monks from a distant well all night long. After 6 years of terrible struggle, Saint Isidore miraculously healed him of lustful thoughts, fantasies, and dreams perpetrated on him by the demon. Moses was ordained a priest in old age. He founded his own monastery, had 75 disciples, and lived to the age of 75. He foresaw his death one day. He told his disciples to flee, for the barbarians were about to attack the monastery. When the disciples urged him to escape with them, Moses said that he had formerly been violent and had to suffer violence himself, according to the words, "For all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword." Matthew chapter 26, verse 52. He remained at the monastery with 6 brethren, and the barbarians slew them. One of the brethren hiding nearby saw 7 shining wreaths descended from heaven upon the 7 martyrs. The Venerable Saba of Sakov and Krepext. Saba was a serf by descent. He lived a life of asceticism in the monastery of the holy Theotokos in Zakov, and then became abbot of that monastery. But they praised him, and so, fleeing the glory of men, he withdrew to the shores of Lake Krefetsk, where he founded a new community dedicated to Saint John the Theologian. Nevertheless, he was unable to conceal his fame and prominence even there. He was visited by Prince Yaroslav of Zakov and his wife. Sava would not allow the wife to enter the monastery, but he blessed her and prayed to God for her and healed her of a disease outside the monastery. This saint of God found rest in the year 1495, and his relics have retained miracle working power. Abbot Dositheus was one of his visitors at Krepex, the synaxis of all the saints of the monastery of the Caves. Hymn of praise the Venerable Moses the Black. Blessed is he upon whom God shows mercy. The mercy of God is joy, joy in both worlds. Moses the Black, like a prodigal son, repented and returned to God, and redressed his many sins with tears. He withdrew himself by much fasting, black of face and radiant in soul. Incessant night vigils named his passions, and freed him from the demon's power. His soul became like a mountain top lake which gazes into the heavens, in which heaven sees its face. When others asked Moses, "Do the sins of others not sadden you? Do the sinful people not concern you?" Saint Moses tearfully replied, "Whoever has a corpse in his house does not weep over someone else's corpse, but rather weeps over his own corpse. The lion can often change into a lamb, but only Christ performs such miracles. Moses was a lion in the mountain, yet became a gentle lamb. By his holy prayers, may God grant salvation to us all as well." Reflection. A true Christian avoids the praise of men, and not only avoids it, but has a true fear of it. Saint Saba of Jacob left the office of abbot and the monastery itself, and the good brotherhood of the monastery, fleeing to a desolate place to escape the praise of men. For the love of praise robs our hearts. A devout prince, upon hearing of the excesses of Saint Moses the Black, took his retinue into the desert to see him. Moses learned that the prince was coming to his monastery and quickly ran to hide somewhere, but he unexpectedly encountered the high ranking visitors. "Where is the cell of Abba Moses?" The servants of the prince asked, not suspecting that this was Moses himself. Moses opened his mouth and said, What do you want him for? He is an ignorant old man, very untruthful and completely impure in life." Hearing this, the visitors were astonished but continued on. When they arrived at his cell, they asked for the elder, but the monk said he was not there. The visitors told them that the monk on the road had said. The monks were dismayed and asked them, "What did this old man look like?" The visitor answered that he was dark skinned, tall, and dressed miserably, and the monk cried out loudly, "But that was Abba Moses himself." This incident was of great spiritual benefit to the prince. He returned home rejoicing. Contemplation. Contemplate the nobility of David, 2 Samuel chapter 1. How a messenger arrived and told David of the death of Saul, and Jonathan thinking to receive a reward. How David bitterly mourned and lamented for Saul, who had wished nothing but death for David. Homily on the form of the Messiah. And we saw that he had neither form nor comeliness. Isaiah chapter 53, verse 2. This according to the Greek text or Septuagint. The prophet speaks of this about Christ the Lord as a man. He had neither form nor comeliness. How is that he, who gave form to every created thing, created the beautiful angels of heaven and all the beauty of the universe, had no form or comeliness? Brethren, this need not confuse you. He was able to appear in any manner he chose. He did not want to appear in angelic beauty, or in royal power, or in luxurious wealth. He who enters a house of sorrow does not dress in the most beautiful cloth, nor does a doctor dress in his best cloth when he visits the gravely ill. In coming to earth, the Lord entered a house of sorrow. He entered a hospital, the body in the garment of the soul. He dressed in a simple garment to impress us by the power of His Spirit, not by His dress. We do not know exactly what His appearance was. According to tradition, His face was swarthy, and His hair was of a chestnut color. Yet when King Abgar sent Ananias, his artist, to paint the face of the Lord, he was not even able to begin, for it is said that Christ's face shone with an unearthly light. After all, even if Christ had clothed himself in the most beautiful body, such a body as only He could create. What would physical beauty be in comparison with the immortal beauty of His divinity? The greatest earthly beauty is merely a shadow of the heavenly beauty. The prophet Daniel was a young and handsome man, but when an angel of God stood before him, he himself said, "There remained no strength in me, for my comeliness was turned in me into corruption." Daniel chapter 10 verse 8. What is the face of an earthly man in comparison to the likeness of an immortal angel of God? As darkness is in comparison to light. Therefore the prophet, beholding Christ the immortal King in the flesh of man, and comparing his earthly appearance with his immortal glory, had to cry out, "He had neither form nor comeliness." O most gentle Lord, who for our sake was clothed in our miserable physical garment, to serve us and keep us from fear, glory to Thee. To Thee be glory and praise forever. Amen.